This man has never knocked nobody out cold. He's a bully. He's slow. He has no skill, no footwork. He's awkward. And I have been giving him a name. Because he fights. When he's fighting, if you ever watch him in the ring, he drags like that after his opponent. and how's the mummy gonna catch me?
And all I had to do was to go out and beat a man who had no skill, no class. Seriously, the man had no skill. I don't know why the world is so foolish to believe in him and think that I wasn't going to win.
Well, when you say you're ready to go to war right now...
I see that barrel in the street, I'll beat him before the fight.
You'd actually take him on before the fight?
Beat him like I'm his daddy. Basketball players out there, football players, they want to beat so bad, they want to get everybody. I'll go to Mars, I don't care.
For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, let's get ready to rumble!
Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Debunked. Okay, here on the Lions Out Sports channel, and happy Sunday to everyone. Again, how you guys doing? And so should be joined here shortly by none other than Mr. King Speech Rowe. Okay, but good morning to everyone else who's here. And so this is episode officially number 3 of Debunked. And right now, I kind of wanted to tackle something a topic that we've heard recently kind of rejuvenated and just talked about in certain circles. And again, I really want to do it because it's one that I actually haven't really tackled directly, just because I really didn't care. You know, I didn't really care about this because, to me, it doesn't matter really what the answer is, because it doesn't affect my ranking, really, overall of anyone, really, especially Michael Jordan. Okay, and of course, we're talking about, obviously, was Scottie Pippen really a top 5 player in the 90s? Okay. So when we talk about who was a top 5 player in the 90s, right? Like, usually the only time you hear this kind of narrative, or when you hear people talk about or try to push that Scottie was or was not a top 5 player in the 90s, was in order, usually the people who are talking about it or don't want to let it drop or get mad, like when you do talk about it, is people who are trying to discredit Michael Jordan, right? So if you agree that, let's say if you do agree with them, and Scottie was a top 5 player, then you're like, okay, that means that Michael Jordan had the most help ever, right? So you can't be top 1 or 2 or 3, whatever the case. They have an agenda, right? And you can't just talk basketball with them and say, yeah, sure, great, he was a top 5 player, oh, cool, and that's it, leave it alone. It's you know, they have an ulterior motive, and so, you know, it really goes from there. I personally don't think he was a top 5 player in the 90s. I think there are other players who, I mean, obviously he has a great resume, but I think there are other players who had more responsibility. I think statistically, other players were better than him. I think was not worse than 7 or 8. But when you look at the overall work, breadth of work in the 90s, right, the people who were there were people who were, you know, actually leading the teams, the people who were competing for the major award, you know, things like that. Obviously, yes, he was playing behind Michael Jordan. We saw that for, you know, basically a year and a half. He didn't but I think that it's really tough to actually put him in the top 5 and justify it other than, if you're not using just, your own bias. Okay. Aircraft carrier says, this is pretty much going to be my list as well. Aircraft carrier. Obviously we have guys like Mike, Malone, Shaq. You had David Robinson and Hakeem right there. 3 guys I think were objectively more impactful in the 90s than Scottie Pippen. I could even put John Stockton up there too. If you just want to talk pure statistics, impact of the team, responsibility, Hakeem's up there. And so, but I want to know what you guys think directly, because like I said, this isn't really a huge sticking point for me. When people try to debate this with me, I'm like, I don't care. I think Scotty, if anything, you could say that he's overrated or underrated rather. But it's, I think that hold on 1 second here. Yeah, I think that he was a fantastic player. This is how I always talk about Scottie Pippen. Okay, is that he was a fantastic player, and he's deserving of all much praise and accolades, or much praise. Fantastic player. You can see he's underrated, whatever the case is. But I hate that Scottie Pippen doesn't just get talked about in an objective way, right? He's always used as a cudgel or a weapon against, to either talk about Michael Jordan, disparage Michael Jordan, or vice versa, right? It's never just on the merits of his own accomplishments, his own career. You can't just talk, they don't just talk about him as a player, within his own bubble. It's all he's always been used as a tool, right? And I think that's unfortunate. Hey, what's up, bro? How's it going?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
Good, man. Just trying to, as I was saying before, it's as we mentioned here, there's, I've always said this is one of the I would say one of the ones that I don't really super care about, but obviously we've heard recently people have been again bringing this up just to think, kind of try and say that, once again, that Scotty is the pushing top 5 player in the 90s or higher. And they're using that to, of course, disparage Michael Jordan and knock his rating, etc. And I think that's unfortunate, right?
Yeah, it is. It is, because Scotty was better than a lot of people gave him credit for at the time. But then he got pushed a little too far ahead. And it's 2 different ways to look at this topic. Was Scotty the best player was Scotty ever a best player in the 90s? Was he ever at one point at the peak? Let's just say 94, right? That was famously said as his peak. Was he a top 4 or 5 player in 94? Was he a top 5 player of the 90s? Meaning, if you take the entire decade, being a top 5 player in the 90s, he was more that's more of a true statement. Of the 90s than in the 90s. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he ever reached top 5, but if you look at guys who played the entire decade, not many played their entire decade where they had most of their prime years in the 90s. So Scotty qualifies, being a guy drafted in the late 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
He qualifies, and the edge of his peak probably goes at 99. So yeah, that's pretty much the difference of the situation. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's one of the conundrum and the confusion of Scott, because you can make the argument, yeah, he was a top 5 player of the entire 90s, but I don't think he was ever.
Well, lost row for a minute there, but I get what he was saying, and I agree completely. I think that, I don't think Scottie Pippen was a quote unquote top 5 guy of that decade completely. If you're just taking from 90 to 99, right? I think there were other players like we've actually listed here who were more impactful statistically. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Ro. Like it's like I'm saying that Pippen. Yeah, if we're just unfortunately talking from 90 to 99 or whatever, right? Like, yeah, I think there were other guys who were, hey, whatever the case is, they were these guys leading their teams. They had the better stats, they had the better accolades, and whatever the case is, they were more deserving of the. If we're just purely talking the top first 5 slots, right? I don't think that there's actual room for Pippen. Like, you're not going to put him over Michael Jordan, right? You're not going to put him over Karl Malone. You're not going to put him over Shaq, right? Like, I don't think. How can you put him over Shaq? You can't put him over David Robinson. You can't put him over Hakeem Olajuwon.
Guys that won the MVP in that decade, like, and again, maybe by the time they start falling off, so does Scotty. He had the back problem. It limited him offensively. He was a limited player offensively. You're not getting the greatest outside shot. Hey, great. He was definitely one of the best all-around players, right? Definitely one of the best all-around players. And again, it's many ways you want to address it and look at it. But Scotty had a limitation, as Coach said. Again, he's never even made one single All-Star team without playing in Phil Jackson's triangle. So how much did the triangle help? You know what I mean? He goes to a Houston, and they're expecting, triangle offensive playmaker and ball hawk defender Scottie Pippen. They don't get that, and they get knocked out in the first round. So, there's a lot of nuance to that conversation. 99 was that last year. Scottie was definitely the most underpaid player of the 90s. Right? He was underpaid because he signed a contract early 90s and the money blew up by the mid-decade, and he was still locked under a long-term contract, 7 years. But top 5 players, I don't see it.
Yeah.
Top
no,
10
for sure.
Top 10 at his peak, for sure. 94, 95, you can say that. But
yeah, no, definitely. Then, like, it's this is, and I want to be clear with like everyone else, like the chat and everything like that. I would love to just be able to talk about Scottie Pippen as compared to like in a light that's not just using him to, in relation to other players. Like, I'd like to talk about his merits as a defender. I'd like to talk about some of the matchups he had and how he helped that Bulls team, all this. But when you look at other channels, like obviously we know who they are. They're the only time they bring him up, they're like, oh, Scottie Pippen. They use him to try and go after Michael Jordan, right?
Yep.
And it's usually in preference of LeBron James. So Pippen is really just in like this perpetual cycle. Like, he doesn't get talked about for his own merits, or what he did. And we can't just be like, oh, we appreciate Scottie and he's there. But it's really just these fanatics who are just trying to use him as a blunt instrument to push their agenda.
Do you think it's sidekick envy? Like, the whole time, it's funny because the whole Batman and Robin analogy led to this sidekick. Like, okay, but Scotty is better than, like, if you're a comic book fan, you know that Scotty had more capability than Robin, right? But they do the Batman and Robin dynamic duo thing where, obviously Robin has his skills, but Batman is the ass kicker, more or less.
No, definitely.
Yeah,
and
Jordan was the guy that, when the game time needed to be closed out, all the famous games, was Jordan making a place. Scotty gave you a steady diet of elite all around, play that Jordan needed as a second option. Again, that's another overused term, first option, second option, right? But that's pretty much the pecking order of their offensive responsibility, and that's what it is. It's a lot of sidekick efforts that they feel like he was the perfect one, but yet he did have his flaws.
No, absolutely. I mean, just like every other player, right? And I mean, it's there's some, we want to. I mean, Sturdy had a good idea here. Like, yeah, I will do that, Sturdy. Obviously, I think it needs to be done. Honestly, I mean, I'm super down to do that. In fact, let's plan on that next week. just so we can do an honest assessment of his career and him as a player. And I mean, but this is debunked, so we definitely will do these in response to bad narratives. That's the entire point of the show. So whether you like it or not. But yeah, that's a good idea though. We will do that. Sometime next week we'll get in there. Just talk about Scotty. Talk about him as a player straight up. Not comparing him, not trying to use him as the GOAT debate or anything like that, because that's really disingenuous and really tiring, honestly. But people have their own opinions. Like Aircraft Carrier says Scotty was overrated, And I mean, honestly, I think in this day and age, I think that the attention is getting, that's fair to say. I mean, I personally have him at, top 20 to top 25 to 30. I don't think that's ridiculous to say.
Yeah, people will sit there and say, why isn't Scotty in your top 15? He won 6 championships. He won 6 championships too. See that this is why it's dangerous when you start your criteria of GOAT with ring count, because there are a lot of guys that will hang around. I mean, if you're going to sit there and say 4 rings puts you in an elite category, well, then you get the Robert Ory's and the Steve Kerrs of the world, who happen to be on great championship teams playing their role. But so starting the ring count argument, right? And again, they'll sit there and they'll Bill Russell in the same way. So, okay, look, here's somebody with more rings as the number 1 player, arguably, on most of his teams than Jordan did. Therefore, I think that's the thing. You can't start with ring count because a lot of things go into winning championships. I made a video where I didn't release it yet, but I said championship teams don't just show up. They are forged. Like, they go through battles about winning matchups. And yes, Scottie Pippen with Michael Jordan allowed you to basically that team to win every matchup at the small forward shooting guard position and at the 2-wing position. And that's what the Bulls were built on. So they were built on having elite wing defenders, having elite perimeter defenders, and it worked out for them. So when people make that argument, again, if you're talking about having if it was a dynamic duo defensively, right? Scotty's all first team, so is Mike. Well, guess what? Mike is half of that dynamic duo defense as well as the dynamic duo offense. But we all know that Mike was accountable for a lot more of the offense scoring output than Scotty, and he was consistently more. He was more consistent with that output. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you're trying to use it as a knock. You can't do it. You can't do it because, again, Scotty didn't show up day 1 in All-Star. He didn't even show up in All-Rookie. But he worked himself in there. He worked himself in there with Mike, with Phil Jackson coaching, and they made history. They made history with the 2 3-peats. And there you go.
No, absolutely. Let's talk about this a little bit more here, just so we can kind of solidify this, right? As to rest here. Aircraft Carrier says though that 25. I said 25 to 30. He said that's an insane ranking for Scottie Pippen. What do you think about that?
If it was, I get what Aircraft Carrier is saying. If you take the rings out, you're looking at 16, 6, and 5. Is 16, 6, and 5 the best? Now you gotta, context to it, right? The late he hanged on as an important player for those Blazers teams who played pretty well in the Western Conference playoffs, right? And so those numbers bring the average down a little bit. If you look at his top 10 years, you're probably getting around 18, 7, and 6, which, better than the 16, 16, and 5, 16, 6, and 5. But, yeah, if you look at that, take the rings out, take the fact that he played with let's put it this way. A lot of people will think if he never gets traded to the Bulls, he never links up with Jordan and gets those numbers, he's not in the top 50. And that's just fact. Those numbers are not good enough to be in the top 50 unless you win at least 1 or 2 famous championships with the Seattle crew. The question is, do you do that? So, yeah, the 6 rings and the Bulls elevate his status. You know what I'm saying? But I don't think I think because of the rings and his importance to winning those rings, the greatness factor, he can be top 30 gradient. I might have him around at 30, 31, 32.
Sure. I mean, I'm not mad at if someone says, "Hey, I have him at 30 to 40, whatever the case is." It's to me that's just semantics. I mean, like I think that his resume, even if we take out the rings, like he does have the 10 all defensive awards. He has the multiple top 5 DPOY finishes. Like he has the All NBA selections. All those. I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to put him in that, let's say, 25 to 30, 35 range. I mean, like that. If you're gonna put if you're gonna put like so many players above him, then I'd like to say, okay, show me the resume, but that's fine, And I mean, hey, Iggy does not have the same. Iggy does not have the same overall resume that Scottie Pippen does. But
he doesn't. But Iguodala was a very good player. But the comparison is nasty.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're you can't just you definitely can't just take a player's ending stat line and then say this was what they were, because that's not representative of their peak, right? Obviously, you get a couple of outliers, like Mike to a degree, like a LeBron probably to some degree, but it just certainly doesn't. It's not indicative of who they were at their absolute peak. And yeah, Pippen was a role player, but it doesn't. I mean, hey, there were a lot of role players who amassed great resumes, and I mean, now there's one thing to say that Scottie Pippen is overrated, but there's another to just hate him, right? And I sense some hate by aircraft carrier, but like I said, I don't really have a dog in this fight. Like I like Scottie Pippen. I rank him, but I'm never ever going to use him like in the GOAT debate. And that's the only thing I care about. If you want to rank him, if you want to rank him 40 to 50, whatever, I don't care. But it's just I'd like to see your criteria.
You know what I and this is the one thing that I like to debunk. Just people's process and their criteria or their See, again, I call it a process more than a criteria, because I think having a process of ranking players, right, who have almost equally impressive resumes requires a process. It requires wind up basically comparing one guy to the next. People like to play the game of subtraction rather than understanding championship. Winning championships is more of a formula of addition. So you're like, okay, the Bulls won a championship. Well, Jordan was this good, right? How much of percentage of share is Jordan credit should Jordan give? So now we have to subtract Scottie, right? We have to subtract however good Scottie was to then limit how much credit we give to Jordan. And that's a stupid way of looking at basketball, because if you look at it as a formula like that, if it didn't add up to what the championship team was, you wouldn't have the championship. So the idea of subtracting a player who was X amount good because they won the championship is just stupid. Well, yeah, Jordan won the championship and Scottie was so good. I don't never look at basketball like that, because you can take a role player off a championship team and they don't win the championship. Case in point, this is the team that didn't win the championship. They got to the finals. If Derek Fisher doesn't hit that shot in Game 5, the Lakers go down 3-2.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? And likely lose the series for the second year in a row to the San Antonio Spurs. Sometimes it takes a role player and their abilities to make a difference. Holy crap! I just Juan boy in the Gold Chains Kingdom. What's the name? Oh yeah, the Bulls lost 4 games when Horace left the team than when Jordan left the team. Well, yeah, you took a vital part. You took their rim protector away from the Bulls, and you don't have Jordan for 65 of those games. Yeah, of course they're going to lose more games. Now you have less. It wasn't just Jordan that left the team. Now you have Jordan and Grant off the team. Well, that's vital. I
Yeah,
can't.
and also he's the ultimate casual, so there's no need to ever reference
Yeah,
that
yeah,
again.
you know that. Hey, that group is full of it. I know you had a hell of a time moderating and protecting posts like they wanted you to. Yeah.
God, yeah,
Oh
terrible.
boy, yeah. But that's what I'm saying. I literally just looked at this post before we signed on, and it's like, yeah, oh yeah, Grant. They lost more games with Grant. Yeah, well, Grant was probably less replaceable. Like you didn't replace him. You didn't replace the shot blocking and rebounding. He was the best rebounder on the Bulls, right? You lose a team lose their best rebounder and shot blocker. Well, yeah, now they're not even good defensively anymore. They weren't. They were mediocre offensively, but still great defensively. That's why the Bulls were able to win 55 games. They would.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you took Grant out, now they're mediocre offensively and defensively, and that's why the Bulls were barely a 500 before Jordan came back. See what I'm saying?
Yep.
And they go, what do they do when Jordan comes back? They go 14-3. So obviously there's an immediate impact. But
Yeah, no, absolutely, man, 100%. And I mean, you know, yeah, I mean, like I said, all these things we're talking about, yeah, like that whole thing, like, oh, hey, the Bulls didn't absolutely tank when Jordan left. They think these are gotcha moments, right? They think they're gonna use those to, like you said, they're not interested in the context, what players left, what players were added. They don't know that like there were like 3 other players added, including like Tony Kukoc, and like he was getting minutes, he was a good replacement, like, and all these other players who were, and Pippen stepped up. All these players who were designed to fill a void. They don't care that they didn't win the championship. The fact that they only lost like 2 fewer games is enough to these are. But again, we're talking about people who don't actually like. And this is important, chat. This is important. I cannot state this enough. Okay, that the people who you usually talk about or we talk about a reference and whatnot, they don't actually like the game of basketball. Okay, they don't actually like the sport, right? They like the fact that there's a narrative or there's a contest, basically. They go debate. They can try and get behind. They want to talk about that. Okay, everything they do centers around that. Okay, whether they're putting together a show, whenever they talk about a player, and they don't want to actually just talk about a player objectively, which is what we try to do here, whether it's with our debates. We want to shed some light on the careers. Our last 2 debates have been about that, right? And we're going to be, we're going to try to get into more centric focus. Like Sturdy said, we were talking about players objectively, talk about the careers, not really compared to other players in a negative sense, but I want to emphasize that these shock jocks that you hear, whether or not it's over on, I don't even name their channels, right? But again, these are not basketball fans. Okay, they're fans of one player typically, and that's usually LeBron James. Okay, now I'm not saying it doesn't exist on the other side. There's 100 mic stands out there, 1 million mic stands out there who do the same thing. Okay, but the key is that when you talk to those guys, it's easy to sniff out. And their takes are never objective, okay? And yeah, they definitely mask it. They try to talk about how they're objective and everything else, but you as actual basketball fans know that's not the case, And so we're gonna have watch parties. We're gonna talk about, even today, we're gonna talk about the actual NBA, what's going on. We're not just gonna sit there and be like, you know what, let's talk about one guy because he's our favorite player, okay, and disparage him. But even that being said, yeah, I know. I mean, right now I know what's going on there. It's more of the same. MJ bad, LeBron good. That's exactly what they're doing there every single week. It's no different today. They're quote unquote watching film in an objective way, right? There's no way that they're just cherry picking games where Mike was good and LeBron was, or Mike was bad, LeBron was, like, there's no way they're doing that. But it's not, it's not really a surprise. So that's what they're doing. And again, like I said, I was telling them, bro, that they're not actually basketball fans over on these other channels. Really, they're fans of one player. And so that's why you don't really get an honest assessment of guys like Scottie Pippen, of guys like Dwayne Wade, of guys like Anthony Davis, right? they're always used as cudgels, and so we try to want to get away from that. And yeah, no, 100% Amani. Like as you see, like that's last couple of years. Watch any of their shows, right? Any of their shows, you'll see like the games like that. Game 5 versus the Celtics in 2010. Hell, games 1 and 2 in 2008 versus the Celtics. You will never ever hear them talk about these games objectively. Never, right? Because it's not that like it automatically means LeBron's a bad player, but they're so afraid and they're so deep in their echo chamber that they cannot objectively talk about every part of his career in an objective way. They can't ever break down those series, right? Yeah, 2007 NBA Finals, right? That's another great example. They will never objectively break down that series or those series and be like, hey, cool, LeBron didn't play well, but here's why, here's why. And yeah, he could have done this and that, blah, blah, blah. They're too sheltered to do that, right? We can do that with every other player, but when it comes to LeBron, it's like a religious thing for them at this point. But yeah. Let's see. Do Wade top 20 to 25? Wade, I think, is right up there with a Scottie Pippen. I think I probably put Wade the same area. I mean, 20, 25, 30, 35, because I mean, he also has, I mean, I don't think that Dwayne Wade was as accomplished. I know he has a finals MVP, right? I don't think that he wasn't as accomplished a player. I think he was a better player offensively than Scottie, and he was a better two-way player than Scottie Pippen.
Yeah, he cleared them. He cleared them, but the longevity and the ring things. Yeah, I mean, well, you're 3 championships, the 5 finals. Yeah, I think he clears them. So I do have him like 6, 7, probably
I would definitely
5.
rank him. Yeah, I would definitely rank him above Scottie Pippen for sure. Not like hugely, but I do think that he was the better player, 100%. I mean, mainly because he led a franchise for at least 9 years, got to the finals, has a finals MVP, was the driving force behind most of their success, obviously, and the numbers speak for themselves, So, and yeah, for sure. And yeah, no, for sure. Like Armani, that's also, I mean, super valuable, right? Like if you're an amazing two-way player, meaning you do have the offensive burden, you do have the defensive burden. That counts a lot, right? Like I don't want to hear about. I mean, obviously you have a team, you have team makeup. No one player wins a championship alone. Like you have guys who are underrated, you have the role players who are usually understated, but the guys who you can objectively say, hey, that guy was the best offensive and defensive player on that team consistently for a number of years. That usually, in my eyes, vaults you up, above some of these other guys we're talking about. But yeah, I mean that's a great point. Woodage. I mean he did have better overall numbers than LeBron in 2009, and it was I think obviously as it sadly mainly is like
yeah. Sorry about that last interruption.
No problem. Yeah, I mean it's the Cavs would have, if I'm not understanding that, the best record in the league that year, right? So that's probably why you want it. But I mean, if they're gonna tell you that, well, you got to ask why. You got to ask what their reasoning is. Is it just because is it the ring count? Because I think that's a terrible argument, right? So I mean, and Wade has what, 3 rings? It doesn't really matter. Scottie doesn't have Finals MVP. Do I have Pippen over AD? No, I would probably put. I mean, at this point, that's a good question. What do you think about the AD? Or if we're just ranking AD versus Pippen, I think that's a good argument or a good comparison.
AD was clearly a better player. Again, you're looking at the lack of playoff success.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, when you play most of your career, even to this day, he's played most of his career for an organization like New Orleans. That has a lot to do with it. You come to the Lakers, you have a good team that's there for a good dominant team is there for 1 year to win the championship. Then after that, the team is flawed, and it also it's flawed. Leads to you playing out of position, and then you getting injured a lot. Which again, being injured a lot is part of your responsibility. But at the end of the day, Scottie Pippen played injured a lot, right? Like, so he didn't play up to his capability. AD is just a better basketball talent. And when we talk about greatness, well, like AD's lack of accolades, and it's funny because AD should have been all NBA defender. He's an all NBA defensive caliber player. He's a dominant shot blocker. He's a great rebounder. All the things you need. And that's where it becomes harder with these conundrums, right? So what did he like? He's not getting the success. He's not getting the accolades because he's not on good teams. Yet, if he was on better teams, he would have had the accolades. This is where the guy. So I tell you, man, the GOAT debate and the GOAT, you making these top 50 lists and top 100 lists, it's tricky. You got so many things you got to consider, man. It's so many things you got to consider. Well, yesterday's debate with me and Viz was pretty tricky. You know what I mean? And that's why people still are talking about how it was judged and points that was made. Well, again, man, like you got to put a lot into that. Why, you got to put a lot into that, comparing player to player over, as we said, 4,000, 5,000, however many players played in the NBA. You have to judge everybody and their contributions and how good they were, how great they were over time, what their peaks were. How long the peaks? It was just so much that goes into it. That's why I say it can be fun, but then people take the discourse like it's like you're killing somebody, right? like you're unaliving somebody. You gotta remember we're on YouTube and these platforms, and I'll let me with one of them. But like you're unaliving someone, like by basically saying player A is better than player B. With Scottie Pippen and Anthony Davis, I like guys that were, put it this way. I know I just dribbled on, right? Anthony Davis was a top 5 player a lot longer than Scottie Pippen was. And then my process and my criteria, that already makes him a better player. You know what I mean? Like I probably have like 5 seasons where I think AD is a legitimate top 5 player in the NBA.
Well, here's also an important distinction, chat. Like, and this is I didn't used to believe it or buy into it, but this is what Dart always says, right? There's a difference between when we talk about the greater player and just better, right? I agree with
absolutely. Greater and better, and that's why you have to define greater and better and what you think and what matters more to you.
or not just Robin, but Michael Jordan, rather. But I mean, if you want to talk about best and greatest, is a completely different. Like I'm not. If we're just talking, if I'm taking a roster of the best players ever, Scottie Pippen's nowhere on my radar. At least my first 15 picks, right? I mean, because I'm going to take just like the best two-way players in the world if I have carte blanche to do that, right? I'm not. You might see. Obviously, I'm taking guys like T-Mac, Kobe. I'll take a Charles Barkley probably. I'll definitely take guys like David Robinson. I want the best players, right? Like, give me some like Glenn Rice. But greatest means you have to objectively sit down and look at their careers, what they accomplished. I don't care what you think about them, if they're overrated or not. How did their careers stack up? And that's how you actually rank players. But if you want to talk about the best, we can do that all day.
Hey, Viz, you're a fool for that. Hey, Viz, you're a fool for that. We'll put it in Chat GPT.
Yeah.
Oh man, oh Lord, man. People didn't even write their tributes using Chat GPT. You gotta love it.
No, for sure. Yeah.
you gotta love it, man. But look, I mean, and that's what it is, man. Like, I mean, you really gonna have a point where AI big. It's funny, we laugh about it now, but we gonna have a point where we just kind of throw numbers in the AI. And that's why I say, man, like, I don't know, man. Those of us as basketball fans, those of us as witness, we're like a library. We're like a library, not a computer. And in the library, you get books, you read different opinions, you read, you know what I mean? We're like libraries, and as long as we're here, hey, you can come and read different books. You can come into our platform programs and get different opinions, and it's fun. The discourse it should be fun, but it gets taken so personally, like yeah, you know what I'm saying, and that's the thing, right? And that's the thing. And again, when you make the argument, even if Scottie Pippen was a top 5 player. Okay, Jordan had a top 5 teammate. So,
yeah.
I mean,
No,
one would have thought Shaq and Kobe were the best 2 players on the planet. Somebody falsely said that Jordan and Pippen were the only 2 players to get top 5 MVP votes on the same team. No, Shaq and Kobe did it twice. Shaq and Kobe did that in was it 03 and 04. You know what I mean? They were both in the top, and it was a season. I think 02. With 02 the way they were 5th and 6th. So, it's like a lot of times it was like an LA. We're only going to give LA, these Lakers, so many MVP votes, and they kind of split it between Shaq and Kobe. You had guys writers that thought Kobe was, more important. You had Kobe writers that think Shaq was more important. Well, that's what happened.
Yeah, and I mean, like I'm with you. Like I've never really used. Obviously, you can use it for context, but I've never really used the who do they play with guys to actually affect their ranking, right? Like,
hey, Big Hog got another one too. Yeah, my boy, Big Hog had another one. Kareem and Magic. I'm sure if I look back, yeah, they were 2 guys top 5 in the MVP vote. So again, people will go to ChatGPT for those that will go to ChatGPT for these talking points, right? Jordan and Pippen were the only 2 players that get top 5 in the same MVP or teammates that get top 5 in the same MVP votes. Well, Kareem and Magic, Shaq and Kobe. Again, it's not a nod because if you're a GM, right?
David Robinson, Tim Duncan.
Yeah. If you're a GM, you are trying to get the best players possible. You want to get the best players possible to win championships.
Also, I would agree, those players elevated each other too, right? Like, they're not going to win alone, right? Kareem in his prime wasn't winning 3, 4, 5 in a row without Magic Johnson there, and you actually convinced me of that to a degree, right? Because I was unsure. But like same thing with Shaq and Kobe, like they're not winning if they're not just both transcendent. Same thing with David Robinson. Tim Duncan probably doesn't win early those years without D-Rob still being a defensive force and a serviceable scorer. Like, it's all about context, right? Yeah. And so I don't if you guys want to use those, like those references to ranked players and whatnot, I mean go ahead. But to me, it's just it's just hindsight, But to me, it's just like, hey, look at their overall resumes, and the Kareem and Magic thing is amazing because they were still racking up accolades when they were together. Even though Kareem was in the latter half of his his career, but still a great example. But with that being said, last words on that is, to me, if you guys should chat, if you guys think Scottie Pippen is underrated, overrated, or whatever, to me, that's one of the least compelling arguments I can say, just because it's been beaten into the ground. The whole Scottie Pippen thing with the 1 and 9, the top 5, whatever. Mike didn't win those. All this stuff is, I really just want to do a Scottie live watch and watching him discuss his career objectively one time without anything else. But that's all we're gonna say about it today, guys. It's like, wherever you have him, great. I just don't think he's a top 5 player of the 90s. That's where I stand. I don't mean that as a knock on him, and I don't mean that as anything at all relating to the GOAT debate. I just don't think you can justify it. But
if you were a top 10 player, first of all, this is my outline on this. The guy went to Central Arkansas as a 6'1" guy who was on the basketball team because he was the equipment manager. I mean, this guy was involved in loading up basketballs and getting and doing the laundry for the jerseys. He had a growth spurt. He wound up being 6'8". He wound up being the one of the NAIA Player of the Year, right? Because he wasn't a D1 player, but he wound up getting the 5th pick in the NBA draft, drafted next to the GOAT. And then to sit there and say he was not a top 5 player of the 90s, maybe he was a top 10 player of the 90s. You think the guy that was 6'1" and showed up and was washing the jerseys and making sure the basketballs was put up after practice? You think that guy, and he winds up in the NBA Hall of Fame, you think that guy would like shudder to not be? Oh, I'm not top 5, I'm top 10 though. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just my perspective. Considering where he wound up to be mentioned as a top 10 player in the golden era of the NBA, ratings wise, popularity expansion, the whole 9, economic expansion. Teams went from everybody's flying coach to everybody by the end of his career, everybody's got their own private jet, except for one team. And I think, since then that one team got its own private jet where, you know what I'm saying? Like Scotty is very important to the history of the game, and Scotty's a Hall of Famer. He deserves that respect. You know what I'm saying? But it's not a crime to say he wasn't top 5. And it really ain't even a diss to Jordan to say he was top 5, even if you can make that argument for you. So it's like, hey, that's a whole big round robin of nonsense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I'm 100% with you there. And before we move on, we'll actually get on to the current NBA standings, specifically the Western Conference. We're going to chop that up a little bit. But Eric Curry, I think that this is always one, like, why is it always Grant Hill? Well, I get it. They're like a prototype of small forward, but Grant Hill came in at 95, right? And he was oft injured. He doesn't have nearly the same resume that Scottie Pippen was, even if you just subtract for those 5 years, right? I mean, I get it. He was when healthy, he was a way better scorer than Pippen. I mean, not really anyone could guard him. 100%, he gave Pippen the business. But I mean, I don't know how you can give him more quote unquote acknowledgement than Pippen. And if we're just talking about bodies of work, what they were good at, what they excelled at, the ability for them to stay on the court. I mean, Grant Hill, great player.
Well, to be fair, the injury problem started in 2000. So if we're talking 90s, obviously the prime of Grant's career is the 90s. Like that's the first 6 years. He really did have a hell of a rookie year, like to the point where him and Jason Kidd were like the only co-rookies of the year that we know, because Jason Kidd even came in with a great Magic Johnson Jr. light impact. And Grant was, Grant really pretty much instantly made the Pistons from a bad team that just lost Isaiah and just only had Dumont. They lost Isaiah, they lost Rodman, and they lost Lambert. So they pretty much
Yeah, I mean, Grant Hill didn't. The closest Grant Hill ever got to a finals was like on the 2010 Suns, right? So
yeah. And you know what? Shout out to Grant Hill for reinventing himself in those Sun years, and making an all-star team. And after all that he went through with the bad surgeries, almost dying from the staph infection for that ankle surgery he had. It's really one of the crazy what ifs of all time. But yeah, we can move on. We can move over.
Yeah, no, definitely. Listen, no, Penny was not a top 5 player.
Yeah. At his peak, maybe, again, another one, top 10 at his peak. But again, just like you said, now he's the one that had trouble staying healthy in the 90s. And again, he had to reinvent himself in the 2000s era where, damn, like we do remember how nice Penny was, but some knee problems.
Yes, I do. It was nice. You guys just need to you guys need to be in the chat. You guys need to be objective, okay? If you want to talk about, like I said, and when we're talking about of the 90s, I really mean guys who were playing the majority of that decade, right? Like it's like, am I drafting Grant Hill over Scottie Pippen? Probably not, because Pippen was a far better defender, right? He was making all NBA teams and all defensive teams at the same time, because he was that guy defensively. He could score. But like I said, wherever you have Pippen, that's one of my least worried about topics. Okay.
We got to debunk it. Yeah. We just got to debunk it.
Anyway, let's go over to, what do you think about this year? Obviously, we wanted to kind of talk about what the glaze, right, of the Western Conference overall.
And look, this is my thing. This is the thing I've been wanting to talk about for a while. The Western Conference do have, and I said this, they probably have 6 of the best 10 teams in the league, right? And they might have, like, let's just put it this way: the 9th, 10th, maybe the 8th, 9th, and 10th team are in the West. I mean the East. So maybe the 9th and 10th team on the East. But those middle, if you however you want to divvy up the top 5, maybe the Pistons and Knicks are top 5, and Knicks to go on a 3-game losing streak. I'll get into that later or another time. But OKC, Houston. My thing is, right, the West do have more better teams. They have, like, I think they have 7 winning teams, and I know the Clippers took a ass whooping. See, think about this. The Clippers just took a big-time ass whooping to the Celtics. And the Celtics, I said the Celtics will be very competitive this year. And like last night, they beat a team that's been kind of putting the West on notice. The Clippers got their doors blown off by the Celtics with Jaylen Brown getting 50 points. So I think the imbalance people think the West have is a little bit overglazed. Now, I think this. The only team with a lack of flaws, the closest team to a lack of flaws is OKC. But OKC can be beaten, right? So a lot of people thought, can any team beat them in a 7-game series? Are they going to win 74 games? Are they going to beat the Warriors record? Blah, blah. Yeah, slow down. But season is a long process. The matchups. Every team in the West has a flaw. Like let's go with Houston. They need a starting point guard. Like the Van Vliet injury kept them at a loop, right? And they didn't trade for a point guard. They really didn't have. I mean, with Reed Shepherd, who's a combo guard, more of a combo guard, guy you want to set him around screen, but he's not really quick enough, fleet-footed enough. He's not good enough on defense to put as your starting point guard. So that's kind of their flaw. Everything else they're pretty good at. They're not the greatest outside shooting team because of Amen Thompson, who really is playing that makeshift point guard, right? Denver. Right now, Denver is reeling with injuries, right? But again, one flaw you're going to have is Nikola Jokic being your center defensively. Offensively, they're terrific when they're healthy. But Aaron Gordon now has to be it's like the Bulls, right? Horace Grant was their main rim protector because he had the athleticism, the length, the shot blocking ability to do that. Well, that's Aaron Gordon. He's hurt right now as well. I mean, they're going through hell of injuries. They pretty much. You're seeing what the depth of their roster needs to do for them to even stay competitive during this sport. They lost Valanciunas and they lost the Joker, so they now going with the young rookie or the second-year player, Deron Holmes, at center. Let's see what he can do. Let's go to the next team, Minnesota. They take too many threes. They still don't have a point guard either. Julius Randle's their leading assister, but they have a good team defense, right? They take too many threes and not really that great at outside shooting outside of Ant-Man, As we go to all the teams, there's a flaw in every team, and that's my thing. It's like, so is flaws on the Eastern teams as well. But it's like the idea that the West, that whoever comes out of the West is going to win a championship. No, this is basketball is a game of matchup. Would you agree, Travis?
Oh, yeah. I mean, 100%, especially when you get into the playoffs, right? And like you see the intensity double. It's also like you were talking about, it's a game of health. It really comes down to, like, it's always going to be who's the healthiest, who's playing, well, or who's playing great. But yeah, matchups matter a whole lot. And like you said, we don't know exactly how long a guy like Jokic is going to be out. It could be. Did we get the word back? Is it an ACL or was it just like a?
No. So it was a hyperextension. Similar deal to what happened with Giannis right before the finals. Like he had a little bit of a hype, and it was a lesser degree. Like Giannis was a lesser degree. So here's their Like I wouldn't be surprised if Joker was back within 2 weeks. Because I don't,
I hope so because obviously I don't know if he. Mm-hmm. I don't know if the MVP is still an option for him after that point, right? Maybe if it's only 2 weeks.
If he gets back within 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then he'll probably have a gameplay. I know he kind of missed a few games earlier in the season. It was nothing serious, but this has probably been the most serious injury of his career to date.
Definitely,
right?
yeah.
And so, yeah. And that,
No, but
and
I
see,
think
that's the thing. That's the thing. It's all about your depth.
Mhm.
Every team has to have that. That's why Rossi they carry 15 players for the reason, and you cannot waste these roster spots because injuries occur. Injuries occur more than ever. So it's about matchups, depth, and then again your ability to adjust. So the idea that whatever team comes out of the West is just going to cream the East. Well, no. Look, if Boston Celtics get Jason Tatum back and come out of the East, so you really confident in that matchup because the way Brown and White and Hauser and all these guys are cooking. Pritchard is starting to settle in. It looks being that Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis have played a combined 27 games, and Big Al is finally looking at his age and Golden State. Hey, they might have did the right thing getting rid of some of these guys on the roster. So
yeah. I mean, we're really starting to see we're starting to see like a lot of not I would say parity, but we're starting to see a lot of players like teams like settle into these grooves, right? Like we knew the Celtics weren't going to be, as good. Like how hard, it's really just going to be like which they were deep, sure, and all those guys stuff like Pritchard, you said like Jaylen Brown, like if they're going to be healthy or not, and then like obviously we're talking about if are the Spurs going to be healthy? Like if Wembanyama is but they've really taken a step forward as a group too.
Yeah, they have. But the question is, do the Spurs have enough experience? Now they have some with Fox, and obviously Cornette has been through a lot of, he's the backup center, right? They have some with Fox, Cornette, and obviously Harrison Barnes winning the finals with Golden State. Like people forget he was on that team, bro.
Yeah.
Like but he was on that team. He was a starting small forward. So you got like so. But outside of that, it's like, the rest of those guys basically have no playoffs, including the star player Wemby. Will they be ready for a playoff grind? Will they be ready for the adjustments and the increased physicality? That's something that remains to be seen. So again, I think it's more parity than people realize, and it's also a disrespect to teams like Miami who no matter what, as long as Spo is their coach, the longest tenured coach now that Popovich is retired. Right, no matter what, they give you a tough series. Like Miami, I liken Miami to Jason. You got to you got to make sure he's down and down for good in all those Friday 13 movies, right? You know how you right? Everybody watch them, but that's how Miami is. Like you gotta win that fourth game. That the idea that you're going to show up, and that's the thing. Like I said earlier in the Scottie Pippen segment. Championships are not like nobody ever showed up and won a championship. No one ever showed. You have to go through the matchups, the series. No one is like, even with LeBron James, right? There were no easy championships. You had to show up and win there. Now it was easy. They were easier paths in the East, which is objectively true when you look at the 50-win teams and the amount of talent on those rosters. But then you still got to get to the finals and win a tough matchup, and that's something that LeBron fans do have in their pocket. Yes, the matchups were tough, especially when you got to the final. Well, yeah, at the point, the Western Conference then was a lot more top heavy and topsy turvy than the East. So the East was on the bottom of the seesaw. The West was high up there. You know what I'm saying? And now, so obviously when you play the best team that comes out of the West, you're gonna have a tough matchup when you've been playing easier team in the East. Well, this year, it's a lot. There's a lot closer to you. Also, Orlando. I think Orlando, the potential. They still go through a lot of injuries, right? They're missing Franz Wagner right now. They were missing Apollo early in the year.
It's my team.
Yeah, I mean they have a lot. They have a lot of defense. Desmond Bane is like cooking. Last I seen, he's been cooking. He's been very consistent. His shot is falling. They're dangerous. Again, the teams in the East are very dangerous. Detroit, a dangerous team. Again, I think they're flawed just like the teams in the West. So if I go through every Western team, I can find a flaw that they need that maybe they need a trade to address. I would say this: OKC is the only team in the league that doesn't need a trade to address their issue, and they do have a slight couple of issues, but they pretty much have a set roster. Question is how will they match up in the playoffs? Well, every other team probably could use a trade. I'm not saying need a trade because making trades is tricky. If you're a contending team, you have to then fit that new player into your system. It takes a while. You're going to lose a few games because you're fitting that player. Or maybe that player does fit what you need, or whatever. But yeah, my Knicks need a wing defender. We could use a Trey Murphy, right? We could use a consistent big man that doesn't have to take back-to-back games off and stuff like that, right? We could use more rebounding. Listen, man. Jalen Brunson, I gotta call my captain out, man. We need a defensive energizer. Without Josh Hart, you see why Josh Hart is the Draymond Green, Jalen Brunson, Steph Curry. Really, the glaringness of the defensive impact and the defensive what he lacks on defense shows without Josh Hart out there. You know, number one, energizing the offense, so being an energizer on defense. And that's the thing. These are the things that, teams need, right? And so, again, every team in the league, except for OKC, probably has a glaring flaw, and they could definitely be exposed to playoffs. So that's what I would like. I think the Western, all these great teams, we don't see what the Lakers flaw are, right? Hey, shout out to Hawk, but Hawk knows, Hawk can agree. The Lakers, when you have three guys, your top three guys don't want to play defense. Yeah, those good teams just can't wait to line you up and just take you to the basket. And again, and on top of that, not having a great, like DeAndre Ayton is a passable rim protector. He's not a great shot blocker, rim protector, or rebounder by any stretch. And that's what I'm saying. Yeah, every team in the league outside of OKC can use a trade, and maybe San Antonio too.
Yeah,
I just think
I currently think it's going to be OKC coming out again on the West. I mean, they're just unless the Spurs have work, because the Spurs match up pretty well. But I mean, like it's
Spurs match up very well. But the question is,
is Castle going to be healthy? Like, is Fox going to be healthy? Like, it's going to be. I think it's going to be a war zone down the stretch. I do like whoever comes out of the West to win. No offense to your Knicks or the Pistons or whoever. But it's really up to, let me know. We'll check it out 2 weeks before the season ends. We're going to see who's on the roll. We're going to see who's rounded in form, who's healthy, and it's going to be because that's when you start to see the effort ramped up, and that's when it gets fun. So there's a lot of there's a lot of things happening right now.
And it's up to coaching as well, right? Because again, all these teams have flaws, and it's up to the coach to expose the flaws. So again, who's the best coach? Who's the best coach that's ready for the moment when you play it? That's what happens. Playoffs. This is another thing I wanted about. The regular season doesn't matter. The regular season does matter. It gives you an indication of matchup. It gives you an indication of
chemistry and everything else, right? You have to develop that matchup chemistry. You're going to see what guys can do what fix your rotations.
The difference what happens in the playoffs is you get the same team for basically 2 weeks traveling together, right? You're in the same city with the same team for 2 weeks. For either if it's 4 games, it's a week and a half, a week maybe a week and change. If it goes 7, it's 2 weeks, right? And so you got that. You're not flying in to a different team every night like you do most of the NBA season. And that's that one team that can center on you, figure out your flaws, figure out the matchups. And usually the team with the more overwhelming talent and better coaching is going to win, especially with also players or talent, players that can show up and be clutch and light it up. That's the team that's going to win. But yeah, it's a lot of adjustments you need to make in the playoffs, and that's why it's different than the regular season. But to say the regular season doesn't matter, that's one of the most overused. You can gauge a lot from regular season matchups. Doesn't mean like the Knicks beating Boston last year after going 0-4 to them. Doesn't mean that that's an indication of what will happen. but you got to really kind of look into what happened in those games
Mm-hmm.
just to see. Okay, hey, this team. I was telling everybody the Knicks match up better with Boston than you think because in the years prior, the Knicks Boston series used to go 2-2. It's the first time we played in the playoffs, and But yeah, I mean, yeah, you can see a lot of things. So looking at regular season matchups does matter. It does matter. I mean, and again, same thing. Certain, you might play a team like you might play a team and one key player was out. So how much can you really gauge of what will happen in a 7-game series? So you really got to look at everything when it comes to that. But yeah, I just think the Western Glaze is over. I think the Western Glaze a little bit overdone. San Antonio has been a great team this year. Very good story. Wembanyama damn sure should be an MVP finalist if he gets the games played based on the performance of the.
Who do you
Of
think
the
gets the
Spurs.
most improved player this year?
Most improved. I would. It's funny because he's been good, but he was hurt last year. Jalen Johnson. I think he's running away. I think he might be running away with that, and it's crazy because he should be an All NBA third team. The way he's performing, like he's dominant, but then Atlanta's not that good. But he's been really like people are seeing that Jalen Johnson. You've been good, but he's been injured. Now he's pretty much showing that Atlanta is his team, and at the point where they're ready to take Trae Young. And I predicted that Atlanta will be Jalen Johnson's team because he's the best talent, the best two-way player on that team. It's not even close.
What about Tyrese Maxey?
Maxi's been good. Maxey has been at this level. So it's like, some guys, if you give them the most improved player, it's like the All-Star last year. Like he's an All-NBA player this year for sure. Maxey was killing my Knicks last night, shooting that range and But yeah, Maxey's another guy that's been good. Rookie of the year between Cooper Flag, VJ. And between Cooper Back, BJ, and Concanuple. I mean, this is a hell of a class too. It's one of the best rookie classes in a while.
Yeah, no, Big Hawk says that's a great point. It would be Austin Reeves probably like in a runaway, but no one's.
Yeah, I forgot about Austin Reeves and Jalen Johnson. Those are two. They're definitely gonna be all-stars. They better be all-stars. And Mr. Call Out the last minute. Please. God, I know the coaches are not going to vote him in, and the media probably is not going to vote him in. The fans got him 8th right now. It's the first return. Yeah, Mr. Call Out the last minute.
Yeah, we both have.
Norman Powell. No, it's funny because Norman Powell, he's another guy that could be most improved. He could have been in the most improved conversation last year, and Norman Powell should be an all-star this year for Miami. He's been Miami's best player. And that's shout out to him.
I think we both have LeBron pencil in for an MVP this year, right?
Yeah, MVP of what? The rookie, the honorary rookie sophomore. Matter of fact, are they doing that? Oh no, they're doing the international versus USA thing. Every year it's a different gimmick for the All-Star game. Poor Adam Silver. You have to sell this All-Star game so many different ways. It's gonna be the international versus the so you're gonna try to get every Canadian they can get. Shout out to Nickeil Alexander-Walker is another guy. My God, Atlanta got 2 of them. Nickeil Alexander-Walker's averaging 20, I believe, this year. So shout out to Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He went and took Atlanta's money and he's producing over there. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I might be a first-time All-Star just to get another Canadian in there, right? So they can have more international guys. Luka, Joker, and that's hopefully Luka and Joker are healthy when they play that game, because it'll be a disaster if both of them. Could you imagine the All-Star game with the international thing and both Luka and what's the name have to be replaced? Oh my God! Even worse because Giannis just got back. But imagine you doing an international. And SGA is probably going to be healthy. But you're doing international versus Team USA All-Star game. No Luka, no Joker, no Giannis. Oh, boy. How about get these guys? How about get these guys to take the freaking game serious so we can just do East and West like we always done?
Dude, no one gives a shit about the All-Star game anymore, dude. Like it's such a joke now.
Well,
It's like,
I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this. I don't think anybody, if they do the first international, because I know they've been doing this in hockey for a while, right? If they do the first international versus Team USA All-Star game, I don't think the guys in Team USA want to lose that. And I think that's why they're doing this gimmick, because I think that's what Silver is. I keep saying, sir, that's what Silver is banking on. That the Team USA don't want to lose to the international guys, so they're going to actually play hard. And it's just, and then you know what? You probably get out there and everybody still be loafing it up like it's a goddamn layup line. Oh God, it's just God. It makes me.
Yeah.
I mean, really, when Kobe was here, bros, this All-Star game was taken seriously, bro. Like, I mean, they weren't like they were going out there 100%, but my God, they were going out there at least 85 to 90%.
When Kobe was here, people fed off him, and like they were like, Kobe's gonna play this game seriously. We need to as well. But yeah, you're right. It wasn't like knock down, drag out, but people actually competed for pride. Wanted to represent.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
like this stupid in-season cup garbage. It's just like
it's killing me too. You know what's killing me, because the Knicks are down 23-12, and that beating the Spurs got us the money and got us that damn cup that we're not raising a banner. Shout out to Dolan and all the decision makers, but it meant nothing. It was one game we had to play, and it seems like we've been a little bit running out of gas because we've had to play that extra game. You got to just do it better. You got to at least make it mean. Outside of the money, you got to make it mean something. Like, you get an automatic tiebreaker with anybody. I don't know. This is what I'm saying. You got to gimmick up the league to make it interesting, and that's pretty much been the problem, man. That's pretty much been the problem.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes from here. But that being said, probably gonna wrap it up there. Go watch this final active week of football. See where the seasons land. But guys, it was another great episode of Debunked, which we're going to do repeatedly and consistently here from now on about whatever subjects, right? And we're talking current day hoops and narratives there. We're just here to talk ball overall. But Ro, you enjoy your Sunday, man. Shout out to the chat, and man, we'll catch you again soon.
All right, guys. All right, peace.